Welcome back to the deep dive. We are shifting gears today. Usually we talk about the flashy stuff, the apps, the consumer tech, the things you actually see on a screen.
Great.
But today, we really need to talk about the invisible layer. I'm talking about the digital bedrock, the software that manages the software that runs everything else.
The plumbing,
Yeah.
essentially. But plumbing that, if it leaks, doesn't just ruin the carpet, it floods the entire building.
Exactly. We are looking squarely at VMware Area Operations today, and for everyone listening who lives and breathes in a server room or manages a cloud stack, you know exactly what this beast is.
Oh, yeah, they know.
It's the brain. It's the manager of the manager. It monitors the health, the capacity, the performance of massive VMware environment.
Right, it's the central nervous system for the virtualized data center.
Mm-hmm.
If area operations sneezes, your entire infrastructure might catch a cold.
Mm-hmm.
Or, in the case of the news that dropped yesterday, something much worse than a cold.
Yeah, let's get right into it. Yesterday, which was February 24th, 2026, Broadcom, who, as we know, holds the keys to the VMware kingdom now, they dropped a massive advisory. And this isn't a feature update.
No, definitely not.
We aren't talking about a new dashboard UI here. We are talking about critical patches for high-severity vulnerabilities.
And looking at the specifics, these are the kinds of vulnerabilities that ruin weekends. We're seeing terms like remote code execution and command injection.
Which are basically the magic words for drop everything and patch, right?
Pretty much.
We are basing today's deep dive on a really sharp report from Edward Kovacs over at Security Week. He not only broke down the technicals of the advisory, but he also highlighted a really, let's call it an unsettling pattern in how Broadcom communicates these threats.
Unsettling is definitely a polite way to put it. There's a distinct lack of transparency regarding active exploitation that we really need to discuss today.
We will definitely get to that silence later, because I think it changes the risk calculus for everyone listening. But first, we have to unpack the flaws themselves.
Yeah, let's look at the actual CVEs.
Right, we have three specific ones to get through. The headliner here is CVE 2026-22719.
The big one.
The big one. It's rocking a CVSS score of 8.1. Now, I want to pause on that number for a second.
Okay.
An 8.1 is obviously high severity, but it's not a 9.8 or a 10. Usually, when we see RCE remote code execution, we expect that score to be scraping the ceiling. Why is this one only an 8.1?
It comes down to complexity. A 10 usually means I can hit enter and you are owned from anywhere, anytime.
Just total open door.
Exactly. An 8.1 implies there are some conditions or barriers in place. But, and this is a huge, but don't let the score fool you into thinking it's safe, the mechanism here is command injection.
Which, just to clarify for our audience, is pretty straightforward. The system is taking input and executing it as the system command without sanitizing it properly.
Precisely. It's a failure to validate input. It's like
slipping a malicious order into a waiter's notepad, right?
That's a great way to put it.
And the kitchen is just forced to cook it because they trust the waiter's notepad blindly.
Yes. The system just reads the command and does it.
Yeah.
But the terrifying part of 2719 is that it's unauthenticated.
That's the part that really jumped out at me from the report. You don't need to be an admin. You don't even need a low-level user account.
No password required.
You just need network access to the endpoint.
Correct. The door isn't just unlocked, it's basically unlatched and swinging in the breeze. If you can reach the server, you can attempt the exploit. However, here is where that complexity factor comes in and why the score is an 8.1 and not a 10.
Okay, what's the catch?
The advisory states this vulnerability is only exploitable, I'm quoting here, while support-assisted product migration is in progress.
Let's unpack that. Support-assisted product migration. On paper, that sounds like a very narrow window.
It does.
It sounds like a safety valve. Like, oh, I'm only vulnerable for the 2 hours a year when I'm actually migrating data and I have a support ticket open with VMware. But is it really that rare?
That is the million-dollar question right there.
Mm-hmm.
If you're a small shop with, say, 3 servers, sure, you might never touch that feature.
Right.
But think about the target audience for area operations.
Mm-hmm.
These are massive enterprises, telcos, banks, cloud providers.
They are in a constant state of flux. They are always migrating something.
Exactly. In a really large, complex environment,
Right.
Migration isn't a one-off event. It's a lifestyle. You are moving workloads, upgrading clusters, shifting data constantly.
Yeah.
So while the vendor frames it as a specific limited state, for a threat actor, it's just a matter of timing.
And threat actors are incredibly patient.
Very.
They can just automate the scanning. They can sit on a network waiting for that specific flag or service to spin up that indicates a migration is happening, and then boom.
Or if they're sophisticated enough, and the groups targeting VMware usually are, they might look for ways to trigger that state.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Can I, as an attacker, force the system into a migration error mode that opens this vulnerability?
Yeah.
We don't know the deep internals of the patch yet, but relying on the idea of, well, we aren't migrating right now, so we're safe, is a very flimsy defense.
It feels like playing Russian roulette, but you don't know how many bullets are in the chamber or when the trigger actually gets pulled.
That's exactly what it is.
And if they succeed, it's RCE. They have administrative access.
Effectively, yes. Command injection usually runs with the privileges of the service itself. In the case of Aria, that's usually root or near-root privileges. They own the box. And once they own the monitoring box,
They see everything.
they see your entire topology. They can pivot to the managed clusters. It's the absolute perfect beachhead for an attacker.
So that's the threat from the outside, the unauthenticated RCE. But the report details two other flaws, CVE 2026-22720 and 22721, which seem to handle the insider threat side of the equation.
Right, this is the assuming you are already inside the building scenario.
Let's look at 22720. This one is practically neck and neck with the first one, scoring an 8.0. It's listed as stored cross-site scripting, or XSS. Now, stored XSS is nasty because it's persistent, right?
Extremely persistent.
It's not just a reflected link. You have to trick someone into clicking in a phishing email.
Exactly. It's a landmine. You plant it, and it just stays there until someone steps on it. In this specific case, the landmine is planted in a custom benchmark.
The report says an attacker with permissions to manage benchmarks, which might not even be a high-level admin, just a standard user, can inject malicious scripts.
So imagine a scenario. You have a disgruntled employee, or maybe a contractor, whose account was compromised by a phishing attack. They have low-level access, they can't delete the database or change root passwords, but they can create a benchmark report.
So they name the report something harmless, like Q1 performance review, and embed a script in the description field.
Something exactly like that. And then who reads benchmark reports?
The administrators, the people with the keys to the kingdom.
Bingo. The admin logs in, opens the dashboard to check the system health, the browser renders that malicious benchmark, and the script executes. But it executes as the admin.
Because it's running in their authenticated browser session.
Yes. It hijacks their session tokens. It can perform administrative actions on behalf of the victim. So the low-level user has effectively tricked the system into granting them high-level control, simply by waiting for the box to check their work.
It's social engineering baked right into the code.
Exactly.
And then that leads us directly to the third flaw, CVE 2026-22721. This one is medium severity. It's a privilege escalation vulnerability.
This is sort of the brute force version of what we just talked about. Instead of tricking an admin with a script, this vulnerability allows a user with existing access to improperly escalate their privileges directly through a flaw in the system logic.
So if you look at these three together, the RC, the XSS, and the privilege escalation, it really covers the full spectrum of an attack chain, doesn't it?
It does. It's a complete toolkit for a threat actor.
Yeah.
You have the RCE to get in from the outside if you catch them migrating. If you can't do that, but you manage to phish a low-level credential,
Right.
you use the XSS or the privilege escalation to take over the whole system from the inside.
Wow.
It effectively means that any access to area operations, whether external or internal, carries a risk of total compromise right now.
Which brings us to the part of the Security Week report that really caught my attention. And this is where we need to talk about trust and transparency in the industry.
Ah, yes. The Broadcom silence.
Exactly. The advisory for these vulnerabilities contains the standard boilerplate. It says Broadcom is not aware of any in-the-wild exploitation.
Which is standard legal defense. It translates to, we don't know, so we aren't saying.
But Edward Kovacs points out something very specific in his analysis. He notes that Broadcom has a history here. He says they are known not to include in the wild exploitation warnings in initial advisories, even for 0 days that everyone in the security community knows are being actively exploited.
This is a critical piece of context for anyone listening. If you are an IT manager or a CISO, you are constantly prioritizing. You have 1,000 patches to apply on any given day.
You have to triage.
Right. And the first thing you look for when you triage is that active exploitation flag. If that flag is red, you patch tonight. You wake people up. If it's not, maybe you wait for the weekend maintenance window.
But if the vendor has a policy or even just a habit of never flipping that switch in the initial advisory, that signal is entirely broken.
It's worse than broken. It's actively misleading. It creates a false sense of security. If Broadcom knows, or if the threat intel community knows, that attackers are banging on the door, but the official document says all quiet, that disconnect puts organizations at massive risk.
Why do they do it? Is it a liability thing? Is it trying to avoid industry panic?
It's likely a mix of legal caution and very strict internal definitions. Maybe they define aware of very narrowly. Like, unless they have a packet capture of the exploit hitting their own servers, they won't claim it. But functionally, for the defender on the ground, it doesn't matter why they do it. It matters that they do it.
So the takeaway here is skepticism.
Absolute skepticism. You cannot rely on the vendor to tell you the house is on fire. You have to assume that if a high-severity vulnerability like this is disclosed, the match has already been lit.
The report even links to previous incidents to back this up. It mentions a 2024 VMware flaw that was immediately in attackers' crosshairs. This isn't a one-off event. VMware products are incredibly high-value targets.
Think about the ecosystem. We mentioned earlier that Aria is the manager. But look at the sidebar in the Security Week report. It specifically mentions ransomware and supply chain security. These things are deeply connected.
You're right, because if I'm a ransomware gang, someone like Black Cat or Lockbit, I don't want to just encrypt one marketing laptop. I want the servers.
And if you compromise the virtualization management layer, you have the ultimate leverage. You can encrypt the virtual hard drives of hundreds of servers simultaneously.
Just flip a switch.
Exactly. You can delete the backups that are often managed or at least visible through these tools. Compromising Aria is often the direct precursor to a domain-wide extinction event for a company.
That is a terrifying thought. The tool designed to keep your infrastructure healthy and monitored becomes the exact tool that kills it.
That's the dark irony of centralized management. It's incredibly efficient for you to manage your servers, but it's also incredibly efficient for the attacker to destroy them.
So given that Broadcom might be silent on the exploitation status, and given the severity of an 8.1 unauthenticated RCE, we have to treat this as an immediate emergency. Let's talk solutions. What is the actual fix here?
The fix is binary. You patch. There are no clever workarounds listed here that are viable long-term. You simply need to update the software.
And we have specific version numbers that people need to check.
Yes. If you are running VMware Cloud Foundation or VMware vSphere Foundation, the target version you need is 9.0.2.0. If you are running the standalone VMware Aria Operations, you need to get to version 8.18.6.
I know we sit here and say just patch it, but I want to acknowledge the real pain for the people listening. Patching a foundational management layer like this isn't like updating an app on your phone.
Oh, it's a total nightmare. I've been there in the server room at 2 a.m. You have to ensure compatibility with all the hosts it's managing. You have to worry if the patch will break your custom dashboards, the very dashboards we mentioned earlier with the XSS flaw. It requires significant downtime, usually.
And during that downtime, you are flying blind. You lose your monitoring capabilities.
Exactly. So there is a very real operational cost to applying this fix. But, and here's the ultimate, so what? Compare the cost of 4 hours of blind spots versus the cost of a ransomware operator getting root access to your entire vSphere environment.
It's not even comparison.
It isn't. And I'd argue, specifically because of that migration vulnerability we talked about, you need to be extra careful how you patch, because patching often involves...
Wait, patching involves migration steps.
It often does under the hood.
Oh, wow, I hadn't even thought of that. The act of fixing the system might trigger the exact state that makes it vulnerable.
It's highly possible. The system might shift data around during the update. So you want to make absolutely sure your network perimeter is locked down tight before you start the update process. Don't do this over the open internet.
Definitely not.
Make sure you are on a secure management VPN. Do not let unauthenticated traffic anywhere near that box while you are applying the fix.
That is a crucial tip right there. It's like, don't open the patient up for surgery in the middle of a dirty street.
Exactly. Sanitize the environment, lock the doors, and then apply the cure.
Before we wrap up, I want to circle back to that idea of trust versus verification. We are seeing a real trend here. The software stack is getting more complex. The vulnerabilities are getting more obscure, like this migration state bug. And the vendors are becoming, let's say, much more guarded in their reporting.
It shifts the burden entirely onto the user.
Mm-hmm.
We used to have a sort of partnership model where the vendor and the client work together on security. Now it feels more adversarial, or at least purely transactional. Just here's the code, good luck.
It really emphasizes the need for internal threat intelligence. You can't just be a patch robot anymore. You have to read the security logs. You have to follow researchers like Kovacs. And you have to read between the lines of every advisory.
You have to be a cynic. In cybersecurity, optimism is a vulnerability.
Optimism is a vulnerability. I'm going to put that on a t-shirt. But it's so true. If you assumed Broadcom would warn you about active attacks, you might be leaving your door wide open right now.
And that door leads to your most critical data. So verify everything, check your versions, and always assume that no evidence of exploitation just means we aren't looking.
So, action items for our listeners. Go check your area operations version right now. If it's not 8.1, 8.6, or 9.0.2.0, you have work to do. And maybe have a real conversation with your team about how you interpret vendor advisories moving forward.
Right.
Are you taking them at face value? Or are you digging deeper? I'll leave you with this thought to mull over. If major vendors have a history of staying silent on active exploits, how should that change the way we react to standard security patches?
That's a great question.
Do we have to treat every single patch as a zero-day emergency? Because if we do, the burnout in IT is only going to get worse. But if we don't, we risk everything. It's a tough balance.
And hey, check your logs too. If you do have to patch today, look for any strange activity that happened during previous maintenance windows. It might be worth a retroactive look just to be safe.
Great advice. As always, the digital foundation is only as strong as the maintenance we put into it. Stay curious, stay skeptical, and most importantly,
Patch your stuff.
exactly, stay secure, everyone. We'll see you in the next deep dive.